Alright guys, today we had game 11 of the World Championship match between Carlsen and Anand, and if Carlsen wins one of the final two games, he wins the match, and if Anand basically has to win one of the final two games and draw the other in order to basically have a chance to win the title game, have a have a chance to stay in the match. Let's see what happened today. In this game, we have a Carlsen playing white and a Anand playing black, and what else do we get than e4 by Carlsen? And pretty much we get a Berlin defense variation. This endgame line is extremely popular. I'm not going to cover much of the details, but we soon get a very interesting line with this early b3 move right over here. That's something I don't really see that often. If I recall correctly, I remember the bishop coming out to this square more often and a plan associated with g4 followed by that. But in this game we have king c8. I remember Kramnik really fancying this kind of plan with an early b6 and c5. I've seen it a lot in Kramnik's games. Bishop b2, c5. This variation is extremely confusing. I don't really understand it at all for either side. It requires an enormous amount of preparation, so for both sides in fact, I don't really understand it. So b6, we're just going to go with the logic behind the basic and natural moves in this kind of position. b6 to develop the king and bishop this way is, I guess, the idea. Rook f8, bishop e6. That I thought the bishop would go here. Interesting. I guess the bishop really wants to keep contact with these pawns and maintain firm control over this d5 square. Notice that the f pawn is always supporting this bishop, so this also feels nice. Over here, knight d5, jumping the knight in there. Carlsen is pretty much just hoping for almost divine in this position. Maybe an idea is that after c6 he can play knight f4 to gain a tempo against that bishop. This light screwed bishop is black's holy grail piece in this kind of position. And one idea to prevent knight f4 is what Anand played. He played g5 to control this f4 square. Carlsen played c4. King b7 to develop the king now by Anand. King h2, probably preferring g4 and king g3 at some point. That makes a lot of sense. a5, a4, these are just small patient waiting moves in this kind of position, and after knight e7 we saw a proposed knight trade right over here. Carlsen didn't really care, he just played g4, and of course black is not going to take and allow these pass pawns, almost kind of pass pawns in the center, these two connected pawns right here in the center, so knight g6, possibly jumping with knight f4 at some point, king g3 to bring the king to attack one of these squares. And I think we've really reached a stage after bishop e7. Black doesn't really care about his dark squared bishop, given that white's pawns here on the queen side are on light squares, and these pawns too are potentially weak on the light squares too. He doesn't really care about his dark squared bishop, and which is not really doing anything in this position at the moment, looking at its own pawns, so it's a really bad bishop. Carlsen played knight d2, probably rerouting the knight over here to either the f6 or squares, possibly maybe from f6 as potential good h5 or something and support f4. I think that's an idea. Certainly he could have gone knight g1, this kind of route to push f4 as well. Not sure he could also do that, but knight d2, knight e4 looks very natural. Rook hd8, knight e4 is expected. Bishop f8. Sorry guys, I didn't manage to do much analysis, but prior analysis to the game, but I have an idea of what's going on in this kind of game, and I think Anand plays a pretty interesting game concept soon. We saw white hop in with the knight. He really doesn't want to trade off, obviously, and it's hard to move at the moment, so black has got to make some interesting progress right now. Black can play c6 in this position. Anand could have played that, and after this, I think the play would have continued knight e3, and black would have probably played knight f4 in this position. The play is pretty dynamically equal. I don't think black has too many problems, despite the space disadvantage, but his position is really solid. In the game, we saw Anand played a really remarkable concept at first. This doesn't really appear to many people's eyes, really, but I guess Anand was really liking the idea of b5, and you might think, oh, doesn't this drop a pawn? Given that there's two attackers on the square, but in this position we saw Carlsen just ignore it entirely. Interesting idea. One idea is that if you take here with the a pawn, black is activating with a4. If you take, Then rook takes, there's a lot of pressure on this pawn. Knight e3 is pretty much forced to cover the pawn right over here, and I don't know, probably we would see a bunch of trades in this kind of position where black is really, really fine in this kind of position. Although, white has good activity. It's about equal, really, in my opinion. So if that doesn't work, why not c takes? And I guess the idea behind this is that after c takes b5, then black would play c6, activating his king, like so, and probably the white knight has to drop back, and we can see that this pawn is really hanging in this kind of position, so black would probably take it and not regret that. So it's really difficult to move otherwise for white, and black should be doing really fine in this kind of position. So Carlsen really just ignores the concept entirely. A good move by Anand, by the way. I think b5 is a really good move by him. Well played. Bishop c3, played by Carlsen, and I think this is giving pretty much Carlsen a good game here. Anand decided to capture to open up the b file and allow the king to go to c6. You might see the rook over here or rook over here at some point go down the b file and try to infiltrate. King f3 to bring the king probably to the center squares right over here. I'm not sure what he wants to do here, but I think the king probably wants to go to this square. I think f4 is still in the air for white, so let's see what happens. Rook db8, king e4. Yeah, and here I think that probably black should play rook b3, right? And probably after this rook e3 to defend the bishop, notice that there's always this stuff hanging in this kind of position, so white really has to make sure everything is firmly protected. The rook on e3 is a nice defender. And here probably king c6 to try to kick out this knight and loosen the defender here is okay. You really can't afford rook b8 yet because this pawn's hanging, so I think black is okay in this kind of position. It's not really clear how the play progresses, but I'm sure Anand would have found something in this kind of position. The problem is in the game he plays a desperation move to try to win the match, try to at least even the match, and I think this is where Anand is going wrong. Unfortunately for Anand, he's picking a nice looking move, but it just doesn't concretely work. He plays rook b4, sacrificing the exchange for a strong passed pawn. The problem is though, white can just take it, right? And at first, this is Anand's idea. It makes a lot of sense to get a passed pawn here on the queen side and try to attack the weak white pawns right over here. But the problem is it just doesn't work. Knight h5, king d7 to probably kick out the knight with this kind of stuff happening. But the thing is, white just plays f4 and attacks the bishop and all the pieces that open up the center for all of white's pieces. And this is the main problem for black. Takes, and now takes is what Anand got. This is what he was betting his hopes on, but white gets really strong activity in this kind of position, and we soon see that c7 is under pressure here by those pieces, and this kind of stuff arises very quickly where even white's now picking up this pawn right over here, attacking the bishop. The bishop has to move right over here, and this is a very problematic position for black already. There's not really a better move than bishop c5. It just happens to be that there's another tactic in this position with rook c7 now for Carlsen. He spots that immediately, and it happens to be that he's just completely winning in this position. Unfortunately for Anand, that's really the case. Black would be totally winning if he could play king c7 safely, but rook c1 gains one of the bishops back, and you're just lost. So you can't play king takes c7, but you got to play king c6, and knight b5 happened by Carlsen, and really in this position, black really needs to activate his passed pawns, so he just decided to take the knight. It's really no better options given that white is going to create a second passed pawn here in the center right over here, and after this, the game pretty much turns into white's favor because of this passed pawn. White has to be careful to stop the passed pawns over here that black has, but it should really be a win. And well, I think white plays this to pretty good play actually, to a certain amount of precision in this kind of position. Here I think they actually, I think Anand actually resigned the game given that this is happening and a move like this is running into g7, and well, you're getting a new queen on the board, and at worst black can probably capture both of these pawns for the bishop, but the remaining endgame over here is completely winning for white. So overall I think Carlsen played a fine game. Didn't really make any mistakes, but I mean, it's a shame for Anand that he couldn't really salvage the match. Really, I mean, I think Rook B4 was a bit out of desperation, trying to not look, but like I guess he really wanted to go for it, but Rook B3 was called for him. I think that would have given him pretty good chances otherwise. It's a shame, really. I wish the match could have extended to a 12th game, and well, at least this time Anand played a much better overall match. But I somehow guessed the prediction this time with Carlsen winning by 2 full games, and I wasn't sure how long the match would be, but I think this was just another good match played by Carlsen. If Anand didn't have his opening preparation, he would have really been blown off the board in most of these games. I think Anand has been shown against higher level competition that without his opening preparation, if he's taken out early, then he's going to probably run into some difficulties in recent times. Most of his notable wins, I think, I was talking to a friend about this. I can't really remember the last time Anand has had a opening win or just a win that wasn't like related to that where they got out of opening preparation really quickly. No offense to Anand. Anand is one of the greats of all time, but I think he's not outdated, but I think his time is up now, and Carlsen is just taking over these days. So unfortunately, Anand loses, and we don't get to see a 12th game. Magnus Carlsen is the defending world champion of chess at the moment. Let's see what happens. I'm excited to see what happens next candidates tournament. I hope Fabiano Caruana or Kramnik goes for the match title, can be contending. I mean, for the next match title, or even Aronian if he ever gets back to his extremely good form. One of those three. I hope one of those three really gets the chance to play Carlsen. I'd love to see a fight between all those three of those guys, four of those guys. So anyways, guys, Carlsen wins the title, Anand loses unfortunately. The match doesn't extend anymore, and just I guess a quick analysis here. I really didn't have much time. I'm very tired today, but I was very happy to analyze all these games for you. And if you would, I'll be covering more of these kinds of games in the future, but if you would, like, subscribe, and this kind of stuff, that would help me out a lot. If you conducted behavior of that kind, that would be awesome. Thank you very much for watching the series and my channel. I really appreciate you doing that. See you around, guys.